Good evening, everybody. My name is Ben, and I am an alcoholic. Sobriety date is September 19, 1992, and that was not my fault. I can also say that my name is Ben, and I'm a grateful alcoholic. And I sure the hell wasn't grateful when I first got here. In fact, when I heard people talk like that, in the beginning, I wanted to throw something at them. How the hell could you be grateful for having a fatal, incurable disease? I didn't understand. Today, I can honestly say I'm grateful that I have this disease. Because without having this disease, I wouldn't have had to have gone through those steps. Those cotton-picking steps, man, 12 of them. But because of those steps and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and the fellowship and a higher power that I choose to call God today, I get to be alive. That's probably premature. I should tell you a little bit about how I got here. I didn't think that I had a problem with alcohol. I didn't think that I had a problem with much of anything. I had a whole lot of people in my life that were problems, but I didn't have a problem. My wife, who had become my ex-wife, told me that I had a problem. Other people in a Buddhist organization that I was working with told me I had a problem. A few other associates in my life told me I had a problem. A few of them even suggested Alcoholics Anonymous, but I didn't have a problem. I mean, hell, I owned a business at the time, and I was pretty hip, slick, and cool. If you had my responsibilities, you had a reason to drink too. And I didn't drink during the morning, so I didn't have a problem. I didn't drink bottom shelf vodka out of a plastic bottle. I was drinking high-quality scotch. And I could not understand these people that would come up to a podium and talk about going out and buying a bottle every damn day and sitting at the liquor store waiting for it to open up because they didn't have the ability to plan ahead. I bought my liquor by the case. So I didn't have a problem. And really and truly, alcoholics were those people that wore trench coats, lived underneath a viaduct, and drank Mad Dog 2020 or some other rock gut stuff. And I was drinking high-quality scotch, so I didn't have a problem. But I was miserable as hell. Inside, I was black. Just black as tar and ugly and But on the outside, I was pretty hip, slick, and cool. It wasn't until my business partner came to me and says, Ben, I can't play with you anymore. I want to buy you out. And he offered me pennies on the dollar. And it would have been enough money that I could have bought some bait shop on some lake, and I could have smelt like dead fish, and I could have drank any time of the day. And I actually contemplated it. But I told him that I'm going to take a sabbatical from the store and think about his offer. So I went, grabbed my fishing rods, went over towards the Green River by the dam and wanted to fish the green below the dam there at Flaming Gorge. And by the time I got there, I was going through withdrawal. I knew I couldn't drink on this long trip. because when I started to drink, I usually drank. And the reason why it happened that way is my normal routine is after I closed the store, I'd go to the fridge, in the freezer, pull out a frosted mug and pour my glass of scotch, my mug of scotch, and add a little bit of water to it, have my nice little scotch and water while I did the daily books. And when I was done with that, if the artists were still there, they were either back in the sound booth with an exhaust fan on, smoking dope, or they were drinking beer. Had a lot of last 2 rows of the soda pop cooler in the studio full of beer. And that was allowed after the store closed. But I drank my scotch and did the books, and then I'd take the rest of the bottle, go home and finish it. And I did that every day, except on Sundays. And on Sundays, I still wouldn't start until it was about 6 o'clock in the evening. So by the time I got to the dam, 8 o'clock at night, I was already starting to go through withdrawal. And I had all this emotional upheaval inside because I'd lost my wife. Kids were kind of a negative influence at that time. But I was about to lose this business that I had birthed 20 years earlier. And I was so miserable from the withdrawal that I really and truly thought that I had the world's worst case of the flu. I didn't know a damn thing about alcoholism. I didn't know about withdrawal. I didn't know anything other than that I was sick. And because I was so sick, I didn't want to put alcohol on it and make my gut worse. So I tried to sleep, shook a little, or maybe a lot, puked a lot, got up the next morning, tried to fish, puked a bunch more, felt miserable. And that night before I got up, I said a prayer. Not praying to anything that I believed in, not really even thinking that it was a prayer, but I said something like, I can't go on like this, please help. I spent another 2 days there. I got very, very little fishing done. Just sick and miserable. Had I known it was withdrawal, hell, I had 2 fifths underneath the front seat. I would have taken care of the problem. But I didn't know. And when I got back to Salt Lake, I picked up the phone because when I walked into my house, there was a copy of the Salt Lake Tribune open to the want ads, and there's a little section there near the adult entertainment section, but it was a little ad from Alcoholics Anonymous. And I don't know why, but I called it. And the guy that I talked to was a guy that I used to drink and drug with. And he was sober. I went down and I talked to him in person the next day. He gave me a meeting schedule. I went to a meeting. I still wasn't an alcoholic at all, but maybe they might be able to teach me how to drink properly. Went to that same meeting again the next day, and I bought a copy of the book. This is large print edition, so it really is the big book. I went to that meeting and I bought a copy of it, and I took it home and I went through the table of contents, and the only thing that really appealed to me was we agnostics. I could kind of relate to that one. I read that chapter and I threw the book on the floor because I didn't understand it. But for some damn unknown reason, I went back to that meeting again the next day because I think I felt a little bit of hope there. But mind you, I still wasn't an alcoholic. But maybe, just maybe, I could learn how to drink like a gentleman. I found another meeting that met at 10:15 at night there at Fellowship Hall. And man, I felt comfortable in that group because the dregs of Alcoholics Anonymous went to that group. And the previous meeting that I'd been going to were business people. They were dressed up and looking pretty clean, and they were happy, and I couldn't understand this. But this meeting at 10:15 at night, I started to fit in there. But mind you, I'm still not an alcoholic. I caught this damn disease from you guys. I kept going to that meeting, and about 3 weeks later, now mind you, all I am is dry, but I'm listening a little bit. And one evening before the meeting started, this guy with a month and a half more sobriety than I had, well, more dry time anyway, came in and he dropped down a piece of paper in front of me that said, 20 questions, are you an alcoholic? I'm going through these little 20 questions and I'm making a little mark, going through, and I'm checking them off. And on the bottom of this page it says, if you've answered yes to one or more of these questions, you may have a problem with alcohol. And then it said, if you've answered yes to 5 or more of these, we suggest you seek professional help. That sounded pretty severe to me because I had answered yes to 16 of those 20 questions. That night I stood up and says, my name is Ben and I am an alcoholic. I made the admission that night that I'm powerless over a damn bottle. How is that possible? But I was able to look with a little bit of honesty, as much as I was capable of at that time. I was able to look at myself and honestly make the admission that I was powerless over this substance. And I looked at my life. I'm divorced. Kids don't want to be around me, and I'm not particularly fond of them either because I have to mind the children. And my business partner doesn't want me around anymore. My life's unmanageable by me. So I was able to honestly, right from the get-go, 3 weeks into it, make the admission that I was an alcoholic. I was powerless over alcohol and my life was unmanageable. Hell, I've got a fatal disease. Book tells me it's an incurable disease. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. But I'd listened enough in these few meetings that I'd gone to. By the way, I went to a meeting every single night. And on a couple of the weekends there, before I went back to work, back to the business, I went to more than one meeting a week, or a night. So in the first 90 days of my recovery, I went to about 105 meetings. But then, some are sicker than most. And I'm a sick puppy. I started taking a look at what might possibly help me. And I'm looking at step 2. Came to believe that something bigger than me might possibly restore me to sanity. First thought, am I insane? Not really. Well, really. At least when it comes to alcohol. Knowing that it's creating problems in my life, and I grab hold of another drink, that's pretty damn insane. For me, knowing that now that I'm powerless over this substance, I can deal with the first part of it by myself, the craving, the stuff that you deal with in the first few days. I can deal with that by just stepping away from it and saying, I'm not going to have a drink. But I can't deal with that mental obsession. That obsession that after a week, 10 days, I'm feeling better. I could probably have a drink today. Or, my excuse, if you had my responsibilities, you'd drink too. If you had my ex-wife, you'd drink too. If you had to deal with my employees or my customers, you'd drink too. I had all of these different things up here as far as the mental obsession. And I know full well, me, by myself, with my own willpower, I can't deal with that. I need help. I need help from a power greater than myself. And I did have a belief in a God. In fact, when I first got here, my God was G-O-D, gift of desperation. I was desperate to change or I was going to end it all. I'm glad I didn't do that. I'm glad that I reached out for a little bit of help. I'm glad that I said that unbeknownst to me, prayer in desperation when I'm sitting there feeling so damn miserable that I don't even want to have a drink. The belief that I had at that time was a belief that I was given as a child. This was the Creator God. Creator God that made all of this and started this ball rolling as far as life and evolution and everything, but a God that was so damn powerful that he was able to create all of this. But my belief system as a creator, and I'm tied in with that creative aspect as well, so I'm sitting here thinking, okay, there is a God, but he's off in some far, far place in the distant galaxy, having more fun creating more stuff. Well, maybe he's creating life there that's got 6 legs and 4 arms and great big wings and able to soar and do all sorts of stuff. Another place over here where he's creating things with brains that really work, because mine sure the hell wasn't. But a God personal to me, I couldn't comprehend that. Nonetheless, that concept of a power greater than myself in the beginning was good enough to help me go through the steps with my first sponsor. Later on, my second sponsor sat down with him, and he was a crazy guy. Hell, he had 20 years of recovery. And rather than asking him to be my sponsor, I said, would you be my step sponsor? Because I needed a little bit of help, and I wanted to go through the steps again because I was sick. And he set me down and asked me where I was at as far as being an alcoholic, and I was able to convince him that I was a real alcoholic in about 5 minutes. Asked me where I was at spiritually. And I told him that I believed in this Creator God. And he says, how about the personal God? He said, no. Got a good belief in God. He's pretty damn big. Hell, he can create all of this. He says, he gave me a brand new concept of God. He said, Ben, I want you to set your concept of God over there in that easy chair and let him sit there for the next little while. And I want you to do something. And mind you, I'm sick enough that I'm ready and willing to do whatever this crazy guy wants me to do because I need relief. And he said, Ben, I want you to pray to Billy Bob. Whoa. Took a deep breath and said, okay. And then he said, I want you to pray to Billy Bob on your knees. Now I'm backing up. He says, I want you to pray to Billy Bob and say, help me stay clean and sober today. Wanting me to do that every morning. And then he said, I want you to, on your knees, thank Billy Bob every night for allowing you to stay clean and sober. I said I could do that. He said, now I want you to talk to Billy Bob. I want you to talk to Billy Bob throughout the day. He said, every time you sit down on the pot, I want you to talk out loud to Billy Bob. That sounded a little sacrilegious to me. He assured me that I'm just praying to Billy Bob. I'm not praying to God, so there's nothing sacrilegious about that. And he said, I want you to pray to Billy Bob out loud every time you get behind the wheel of the truck. And mind you, when I went back, I got rid of my business partner because, hell, I owned 60% of the company. So I had a board of directors meeting, and I fired him and the drug dealer that he had brought in as one of our employees. And I had a responsibility, and I was going out in the truck frequently during the day. And I had to drive to and from work every day. I had to open the store and close the store and do bids and all the other fun stuff. So I had a lot of opportunity in the truck to talk out loud to Billy Bob. Initially, it was, before I ever turned on the truck, okay, Billy Bob, I'm checking in with you because I said I would, over and out. Then I'd start the truck and turn on the radio and go do what I had to do. After a while, I was having, albeit one-sided, I was having conversations with Billy Bob. I was talking to him about my ex-wife. I was talking to him about my employees and my customers. I was talking to him about suppliers and people in AA. I was actually having conversations. There was one time I remember, and this is before cell phones were around. I mean, I did have one of those massive brick cell phones, but you really didn't use them very often. And I'm sitting here having this conversation in the truck, and this lady and her child, teenage child, pull up beside of me at a stoplight. Kid looks up at me and then talking to his mom and pointing at me. And I know this kid was saying, look at Mom, look at this crazy guy, he's talking to himself. But I was doing it. I was having a conversation with Billy Bob. And what this stupid little experiment did was it changed my conception of God. Yeah, God has the ability to do all this creation, at least my concept of God does. But God became personal to me. And for me, I believe that God is available to me any hour of any day, any place. And I believe that my God is capable of doing that with each and every one of you. And of each and every one of the other people on the face of this earth. And other life forms. And other places throughout the universe. My God grew from a creator God to a God so much larger than that. A God that's personal to me that I am so blessed to have today. And although I took my third step, prayer, in Fellowship Hall, a couple of months into sobriety, with two old men standing up and the three of us holding hands, which I thought was weird. I said that prayer then, but after the second step sponsor a year later, I was really, truly in a position to make a decision to turn my thoughts and my actions over to a power greater than myself. Some force, some power, I don't know if it's an entity or not. Hell, I don't know who or what God is. For me, God is not male or female, but it's both and so much more. And I don't know if that fits in anybody else's belief, but that's my concept of God. And I love him. And the amazing thing is, I think he, she, and it love me back. And that's pretty cool. Because with that, I get to stay sober today. I went through with my first sponsor and my second sponsor, step 4. I looked honestly at myself, as honest as I was capable of each time. I looked at my resentments and I listed them. And then I wrote why I had resentments towards these people or institutions or principles. Hell, one of the principles I put down on my first one was rigorous honesty. Didn't like that principle. How the hell am I going? I didn't know how I was going to exist, to be real honest. Cash register honesty, okay, no problem. Rigorous honesty with other people, I don't know about that. But I put that one down. I put down other stuff. I put down my fears. I listed out all my fears. And when I first looked at it, hell, I'm a man. I don't have any fear. The hell I didn't. The more I looked at that really and truthfully and honestly, the more I realized that I was afraid of just about everything. I listed my sex inventory. I listed the people that I had hurt, where I had unjustifiably aroused jealousy, suspicion, and bitterness. And I was honest about that part of it too. I listed the parts in there that were imaginary. All these women that I wanted to have as sexual partners, but in my head, they had rejected me. So rather than going through that pain and anger, I just held resentment towards them. I put them down. And then I had the opportunity to going on a trip with my sponsor and my grand sponsor. We drove to Wendover. And I sat there and I read to these two men my inventory. Had a cup of coffee in Wendover, and I read on the way back. We sat in a parking lot for a little while, and then we continued to drive. We went to Utah Lake, and around Utah Lake, and I read. And then we came back to Salt Lake, and I sat in a parking lot, and I was asked, is there anything more? By that time, I'd gotten it pretty much out. My sponsor didn't give me much, but my grand sponsor did. He shared during my 5th step, he shared some of his stuff. Made me feel more comfortable. Made me feel like I wasn't alone. Like I wasn't the piece of shit that I thought that I was. But during that process, I was able to uncover a whole lot of character defects and shortcomings. This guy who thought he was perfect, now I get to see in black and white in front of me some of these things that I want to change. And with the help of my sponsor, I was able to go through a bunch of that stuff. Looking at those patterns that I consistently did. The dishonesty, the deceit. Things that I don't want to be a part of me anymore. 6 and 7, I've changed a lot about self, but I think this is a lifetime deal, and I'm still working on a bunch of them. At the rate that I'm going, I am pretty sure that I will be very, very close to 100% done with those and corrected about the time I'm 354 years old. In other words, I still have a long ways to go. But I was also honest enough through that process to be able to make a list of people that I had hurt. Not just the people that hurt me, but people that I had hurt. And I became willing, through a lot of prayer and direction from sponsors, to make amends to them. Boy, oh boy, was I afraid to do that. But I did it. After 29 years, there's still 2 people on my list that I have not made amends to. One of them I've kind of made living amends to, my deceased father. I have not gone to his grave, and I hope sometime before I die that I get a chance to do that. The other one is my first wife, absolutely beautiful woman. Got married when I was 21 years old. Marriage lasted for 2 whole years because I wasn't the man that I should be. And I would like so much to be able to clear that up with her. I've looked, and if I ever have a chance, I'm ready and willing to make amends to her. And with that exception, I think I'm pretty clean with everybody else in my life. That brings me to step 10. Today, when I screw up, most all the time, I promptly admitted it. And I try to clean that up right then. That doesn't happen all the time, but most of the time it does today. And as soon as I become aware of it, I'm ready and willing to make amends on anything that happens today, too. 11, prayer and meditation to improve the relationship that I've got with this incredible God. Today, that is a gift to be able to do that. And I look forward to doing it on a daily basis. I want to improve that relationship because the better it gets, the better I feel. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of walking through these wonderful steps that we have, I get to carry the message. Today I have the great good fortune of working part-time for a treatment facility. I get to work with newcomers every day that I go to work. Man, does that keep my disease right in front and center. It keeps my recovery fresh. And when I go to work, I get out of myself. And that brings such joy. Every day when I go home, I feel good. Today, I have the opportunity of working with some gentlemen. Some of them call me every day. Some of them, today I got 2 calls from people that I used to be sponsors with, one in Montana and one in California. And being able to work with these guys brings joy. I am blessed to have these men in my life. But you guys, most of this is that I've shared for the last few minutes is mostly geared towards the newcomer. I also have got something really important that I want to share with some of those people out there. And there's a lot of you out here with a long-term recovery, so I want to share some stuff. I have the great good fortune today of not only working with Alcoholics Anonymous, but I also work with Emotions Anonymous. Same 12 steps except for the change of 2 words in first step and 12 step. I get to work with Refuge Recovery and Smart Recovery. This book and the big book have saved a lot of lives. The other might help. But I ran into an even different program that I really want to share with you guys. And this is a guide to the 12 steps of non-recovery. So for those of you that are going to sleep, you really want to listen to this stuff. It says, the following 12 steps of non-recovery will reassure any active member that any periods of sobriety are just momentary setbacks in fulfilling our destiny with ongoing and progressive engagement in our addictions, compulsions, and or self-defeating behaviors. So if you want to hear how this works, listen. Step 1. We admitted we are powerless over nothing. That we would manage our lives perfectly and those of anyone else's who would allow us to do so. 2, came to believe that there was no power greater than ourselves and the rest of the world was insane. 3, made a decision to have our loved ones and friends turn their will and their lives over to our care, even though they couldn't understand us. 4, and I love this one, made a searching moral and immoral inventory of everyone we knew. 5, admitted to the whole world the exact nature of everyone's wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to make others straighten up and do right. 7, demanded others to either shape up or ship out. 8, made a list of all the persons who had harmed us and became willing to go to any length to get even with them all. 9, by the way, the principle associated with step 9 is justice. So 9, got direct revenge on such people whenever possible, except when to do so would cost us our lives, or at the very least, a jail sentence. 10, continued to take inventory of others, and when they were wrong, promptly and repeatedly told them about it. 11, sought through complaining and nagging to improve our relations with others, as we couldn't understand them, asking that they knuckle under and do it our way. And 12, one of the best ones of the whole list. Having had a complete physical, emotional, and spiritual breakdown as a result of these steps, we tried to blame it on others and to get sympathy and pity in all our affairs. So, for those of you that have had a little bit of long-term recovery, there is a solution for you too. You can do this guide to the 12 steps of non-recovery, and the people in AA that are still there, if you choose to come back, we'll let you back in with open arms. if you want to get well, I want to read one paragraph out of a different program. This is how it works out of Emotions Anonymous. It says, no one who has diligently followed our path has ever been known to fail. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. If you are hurting and want to change, you can. Recovery depends on being completely honest, open to new ideas, and willing to take the necessary actions. That's a little bit more severe than what our book says, where it says, rarely have we seen a person fail. Here it says, no one who has done the deal has ever been known to fail. My experience shows anyone that really and truly wants to jump into this and really do it will succeed. Every single one of them. There are those that only do it part way. They're willing to do it, but not 100%. And those frequently 5 to 8 years after they get it, their life has gotten so dang good. Things are working for them. But they get a little complacent with their recovery and start putting other things in place of it. But even those people, if they originally started and did the work, they got recovery. They just failed to hang on to it. I'm one of those fortunate ones. I've got one sobriety date. And I really and truly believe that the reason I only have one is because I've been able to stay in the program, do the steps, find a power greater than myself, talk to a sponsor, be of service. And because of that, with all the crap that's happened, I get to live a pretty rich, good, full life today. I'm a blessed man, and today I can honestly say, my name is Ben, and I am a grateful alcoholic. Thank you.